members and new members. We'll start off the agenda with 2022 dues. So Roger's in the back to take your cash, credit card, check. If you haven't already paid online. If you haven't paid by February 28th, Club Express will decide that you're probably not going to pay, and they'll kick you off of the emails and the active member lists. So the other thing is Roger has IDs back there for new members. So if you haven't picked up your little ID thing and lanyard, go back and check with Roger. We have an update on Dave McNeely. Dave went into the hospital some weeks ago with necrosis of the pancreas. He's not been in good shape, but he's getting better. He made it to rehab this past weekend.
Okay. Won't hear him. No, you won't. Not through here.
Bob, you're coming out on the system. Okay. He's doing very well in rehab. Your continued thoughts and prayers would be welcome, and hopefully everybody signed the card out there for Dave. Gary Lucas has been dealt a double whammy. He fell at work and broke his arm, and then he hadn't healed up from that and ended up in the hospital having surgery for a bleeding ulcer. So thoughts and prayers for Gary would be appreciated, and again, hopefully you managed to sign one of the cards out there for Gary. Okay, with that, we'll get into the program, and Cam Clark has he's decided that since today is his wedding anniversary, it might be a prudent choice to not attend the meeting tonight. So I think we'll buy that excuse. So Nick Engler will be our presenter. He will be presenting remotely. He'll be patched in through our system. You'll see him on the screens. If you have questions, don't hesitate to ask. Hold your hand up. We'll get somebody to you with a microphone, and we will get the questions forwarded to Nick. If you're watching remotely on our website, please ask your questions in the chat box, and again, we'll get those to Nick. Nick Engler is the founder of Hands On Magazine, and he writes articles for Fine Woodworking and American Woodworker. He's published 53 books on woodworking, including the Workshop Companion Series. He lives in Ohio, and with that, I give you Nick Engler.
The speaker just told you. Author, craftsman, builder of Wright Brothers airplanes, and currently the host of the Workshop Companion YouTube channel. And I owe all of you a big thank you, because it's folks like you who have driven us up to 100,000 subscribers. We just made that last week, and it's been a long haul, but we made it, and we're beginning to make a real go of this. So I've started out writing books, and it looks like I'm going to finish up doing videos like this one. So when you guys came to me, I said, well, what do you want me to talk about? As most of you know, I'm a generalist. I've written 53 books, so I have a fair amount of things that I could speak to. And they asked me, we want to know if you could help us simplify our finishing needs. Suggest a finish that we could use for most things. And I said, yes, actually, I could do that. I have one of those that I have used for 35 years. Many years ago, I had exactly the same problems that you're having with a cabinet full of finishing materials and no real idea of how I should use them, or no idea of whether or not I'd use them up quick enough before they became just blocks of cement inside the cans. You see the yellow cabinet behind me that currently holds our finishing materials. I can't say it's simplified, but when we go to that, we only usually take out 2 or 3 cans. All the rest are just in there for show. In fact, if you dig to the back of it, there's another entrance to Narnia in there somewhere. But the finishing that Rudy told me about. Now, Rudy was a turner, one of the best turners in the world. He was world renowned. He was the head of the woodworking program at Berea College in Berea, Kentucky. And so he had some real chops. And he said, Nick, try this. If you don't like it, he said, there's more to try. So I had, at that time, like I said, I had a cabinet full of stuff that I had tried and hadn't liked anything. And I tried Rudy's, and I thought, that's pretty good. Over the years, I've made some changes, and I'll tell you about them at the end of this. But I've been real happy about it. And so I thought, okay, I will tell them about it. And then I began to think, well, wait a minute. My finish is 35 years old, the formula that I use. And there has been a lot of things that have gone on in coating chemistry since then. And a lot of new things on the market. Maybe it's time you put your old finish aside and test a few new things. So that's what I did for this presentation. We're going to go on, and we're actually going to make a video out of this for our YouTube channel. I can't present everything here that we're going to present at the YouTube channel because there just isn't time, but I will walk you through it. So the answer to your question is yes, absolutely. There is a way to simplify your finishing needs. However, what Rudy told me 35 years ago may not be what you want to hear right now. My finish may not work well for you. You have different needs than I do. And so the first thing I'm going to suggest is that you might want to go through something of the same experiment that I did to find something that works well for you. Take the information that I have to impart right now and build upon it. Do a little bit of your own investigation. You should also have a fundamental knowledge of what finishes are all about, the core of finishing chemistry. So that's what I'm going to get in right now, something that we can build on and talk from. The more knowledge you have, better decisions you're going to make on finishes down the road. Let's start with the very basics. Why do you need to put a finish on the wood? Well, there are 3 big reasons. The first is protection. Wood is a fiber. It collects all sorts of things: chemical stains, grease, dust, dirt. Because it's fibrous, it gets dirty, just like your clothes. It also abrades. We use our wooden utensils all the time. You're pulling drawers in and out, you're shutting doors, you're chopping on your chopping board. So you need something that protects the wood, makes it harder and resistant to abrasion. Second, you need to reduce the release and the absorption of moisture. Wood expands and contracts all the time. Every time the relative humidity in your shop changes, the wood expands or contracts with it and changes moisture content. What a finish does is it doesn't slow it down. You know, finishes are only semi good at preventing water from escaping or getting in. The moisture content will pass the barrier. It's not permeable. Okay, that's the big word I was looking for. Finishes are all semi-permeable, but they do slow down the absorption and release so that there is no shock expansion and contraction on the boards that you release out into the world. Finally, and this just goes without saying, finishes beautify the wood. Okay, they make it translucent, they warm it up, they emphasize the wood grain, they change the color. You can make a really ho-hum project look spectacular with a good finish. One of the things I wanted to show you, let me take my notes here, and I'm going to take just a little bit of this this tung oil, all right? And I'm going to put my finger in there. There we go. Get a little tung oil and wipe that on there for a minute. Okay. Now, it only takes a few seconds. Okay. Look there. There we go. Look at that. Okay. I'm turning it around because I'm hoping it will catch a light and you'll be able to see through it. It actually makes that fiber translucent. That's cellulose fibers. This paper was made from wood. Okay. That does the same thing for your projects. It makes the wood translucent. When you talk about looking at a finish and saying that looks deep, yeah, it does. You're actually looking down through the fibers, and the more translucent it makes it, sometimes the deeper it makes it seem. So, coating chemistry is what makes this magic, and it is diverse and complex. But you can simplify it by saying that most finishes have just two major ingredients: solids and carriers. The solids are the things that actually coat the project, what's left behind. They are usually resins. We used to have in old days we would use pine gum, copal, rosin for the resins and dissolve that into turpentine, paint it on. The turpentine was the carrier. It dissolved the resins. The turpentine evaporated and left a thin sheet of resin behind. Today, we manufacture our resins there from organic fats and oils and petroleum. You have alkyds, which are fairly soft, urethanes, which are much harder and very stretchable. They move with the wood. You have phenolics, which are much harder but don't move with the wood. Epoxies and vinyls and acrylics. So those are the big six, and there may be a blend of all of those in any one of these cans of finishes. But it all boils down to solids, what's left on the wood after the carriers evaporate. Now, that said, when the finish is put on the wood and the coating is forming, there are 4 ways in which it can form. Okay, first of all, the carrier can just evaporate. In other words, the solid is dissolved into the carrier, and when it evaporates, it leaves a thin sheet behind. Shellac is like this. It is bug shit dissolved in alcohol. You put it on the wood. The alcohol evaporates into the air, leaving the bug shit on the wood. And it's very easy. And those were our first finishes. But we quickly, once we actually got some chemists involved in this, came up with reactive finishes. Now, reactive finishes are things like polymerized oil, varnishes. These are things that once the carrier, the solvent, evaporates, the finish itself, the solids, react with oxygen and form a chemical matrix that is different from what was dissolved into the carrier. So when you put another coat on, it doesn't dissolve the coat that's underneath it. You can put a coat of this tung oil finish right here on this wood, let it dry, and then put another coat and let it dry, and you're never removing any tung oil. If I was doing that with shellac, I would remove some of the shellac each time I brushed on a new coat. From there, we got into catalyzing finishes. These are all solvents, are all carriers, and all solids. Right? You have two liquids, and you put them together, and they begin reacting with each other and forming a solid layer. So they go on as the carrier, and as they're reacting, they form the solid. Really, really economical because there is nothing going off into the atmosphere. Some of this stuff that I have here is probably only 30, maybe even 20% solids. Okay, so there's a lot of stuff that I'm wasting when I put it on the wood. With the catalyzing finish, nothing is wasted. And finally, there's the new stuff. Beginning when I was writing books, the EPA started saying, "Hey, we're really doing some bad things to the atmosphere. We need to stop putting in all these pollutants when you're cracking these fatty acids and this petroleum and making the finishes." So they began to limit what you could do, and the finishing people, the coating chemists, began to look around for something that was a little bit more eco-friendly, and they came up with coalescing finishes. Now, here you have water as the carrier, just plain old ordinary water. The finish is a highly reacted solid, okay? It's already begun to form a matrix, and it's a really intense solvent. And this forms a little globule, tiny microscopic globule that is suspended in the water. You put the finish on, the water evaporates, the globules kind of run together, the solvent evaporates, and the solid that's left behind reacts with the oxygen, forms a coat, and there you have it. So coalescing actually means co-solvent because you have two solvents. You have the water, and then you have whatever keeping the finish suspended in the water. So what we've got here is a combination of that, but I wanted to talk about one more way we can divide finishes, because this has a lot to do with looking for a finish that is simple and easy to put on. There are three ways to put on finish, and a lot of people divide finishes up into finishes you can brush on, finishes you can spray on, and finishes that you can wipe on. Now, obviously, spraying takes an enormous amount of equipment. Not only do you need the spray gun and the compressor to run it, you will also need a finishing booth. Otherwise, you're filling up the air with things that will eventually kill you. In fact, it might not even be eventually, it might be right then. These finishes, the solvents, can affect both your nervous system and your respiratory, as well as causing skin problems and other things. So when you spray on, you really have to have a good booth that sucks the overspray out before it can get to you. Not exactly something that you want to use to simplify your finishing needs. Then you have brush on. Brush on requires a lot less equipment and a lot more skill. The whole trick, as most of you know, to putting on a good finish is to keep the coats as thin as possible. When putting it on with brush, a novice will say, "Okay, I'm gonna really put on as much as I can and really build this up," and only to find that coat runs like crazy or it takes forever to dry. And when it does dry, it's just full of bubbles or little dust motes that have been attracted to the finish, and it builds up around the dust motes and creates little goose pimples all over the finish. Lots of bad things can happen if you put the finish on too thickly. So you want to keep it as thin as possible, and this requires some technique with a brush. So it's really quite a skill. I've known people who just have amazed at how beautifully they could put on a finish with almost no rub out in between coats. I can't do that. I'm probably too addicted to my own finish, which is a wipe on finish. Wiping on does it for you, because you put the finish on and then wipe it off. You leave very little finish behind. In fact, most of it goes onto your rag. So you get that thinness quickly, and easily, with almost no effort. So just the dividing finishes up in that way, if we're going to simplify your finishing chore, obviously we're going to go for a wipe-on finish. And all of these finishes here that I have selected are wipe-on finishes. Now, that isn't to say that that you might run into things that you have to brush on, and that you might want to get into spraying at some point. If you get into production, spraying really is the way to go. If not, wipe-on will help you, but sooner or later you're going to have to do some brushing. What we're working here for is, as I defined at the beginning, is something that can be used most of the time. You won't be able to get away from all those chemicals and all that equipment, unfortunately. So, wipe-on finishes. Wiping, the wiping finishes tend to be, now let's go back to the chemistry for a little bit. They tend to be either evaporative, okay, or coalescent. The finishes that I have selected here, 6 of them are, I'm sorry, I said evaporative. They tend to be reactive or coalescent. The 6 of the 7 finishes I have right here are reactive finishes. They react with oxygen. They go on, it's a thin coat, the solvent or the carrier dissipates, and the finish that's left behind reacts with oxygen, forms a hard coat. One of them, right here, is a coalescing finish. This is the only water-based wipe-on finish that I could find. I actually was fairly impressed with that. We'll get to that a little bit. But most of the wipe-on finishes that you're going to go out there are going to be reactive finishes. And within that group of finishes, there are 4 subdivisions that you should be aware of, okay? The first is non-drying oils. That is stuff like walnut oil, this 100% pure tung oil. This finish does not react. I'm only have it here with the other reactive finishes because it's on the very end of the scale. If you leave it on for a long time, there may be some reaction, but very, very little. I have it over here on a piece of plastic, and I'm getting some reaction to this, but not much at all. It's just going to sit in the wood, and it will provide some protection and some beautification, but it won't do the things that you're going to see the others do. Okay, if we took this finish and we polymerized it, that is, we heated it up and got it to start reacting, you would get this finish. Now, this is polymerized linseed oil. The polymerization is a chemical change that allows the oil to become reactive with oxygen in the air. This is actually a polymerized linseed oil and some beeswax mixed in. I don't know exactly what the beeswax does, but it's in there for some reason, and they call this a traditional finish, tried and true. We'll put this, here's a non-reactive finish, here's a semi-reactive finish. Now we get into blended finishes, and I'm going to skip to the other end of the spectrum to varnishes, because everything else is a blend in between oils and varnishes. This is General Finishes Armor Seal. It is a polyurethane varnish that when you put it on, builds up very quickly into something very hard, and it's exactly what you can get in a can of brush-on varnish, but it's thinned out a great deal more so that you can wipe it on. Okay, let's go back. Okay, let's go back into our blends. This is Minwax tung oil finish. This is mostly a polymerized oil okay, a blend of oils. Now, I'm not going to go into the controversy of whether or not there is any tung oil in this. If you read the things that are online, you will find that there's a whole big discussion on this. I've actually talked to the coating chemists at Minwax when I wrote my book on finishing, and at that time, and that was many years ago, okay, there was tung oil in this finish. There may or may not be now, but you can probably bet it's mostly organic. It's organic fatty acids and oils that have been reacted and then blended together. I would bet you that there's a lot of soybeans in this stuff, but we're not talking about what's in it, but rather how it works. So we'll get to that in a minute. Antique oil. Now we're starting to add a little varnish in here, a little more varnish than what's in the tung oil. This is still mostly oil. Has some linseed oil in here and several other oils, but it builds fairly quickly and that leaves a great shine. All right, wood bowl finish. Again, coming back to general bowls, more varnish, less oil, and the ingredients in this are food safe. Now, I'm going to come back to that in a minute, all right? Hold that in your mind, food safe. Now, our coalescing finish, wipe on poly, water-based. This I am classifying as a wiping varnish because that's what it is. It's polyurethane that you wipe on. It just happens to be suspended in water instead of oil. And it leaves a pretty hard, in fact, there's some right here. It leaves an incredibly hard finish. Now, let's take a little detour real quickly and talk about food safe. Okay, I know that there is enormous amounts of discussion online about what is food safe and what isn't. And there are many people out there online who wave safety data sheets. I've got a bunch of them here. Safety data sheets at you as if they were the Bible and say, you can't put this stuff on your salad bowls. It will kill you. These are the safety data sheets that are available for each and every one of the finishes that I have up in here. And as you can see, even though they call it a safety data sheet, it has more to do it's more like an encyclopedia. I mean, look at this. This is the Armor All stuff. 16 pages. Okay. And if you read through this, it's very scary. Okay. I mean, this will cause World War III if you let it out of the can. But these safety data sheets, there's a lot in here. You really should download them if you're using a finish a lot. These safety data sheets are written for you as the applier, the person that is applying the finish to the wood. This tells you how toxic these finishes are in their liquid form before they're reacted. Okay, it says nothing in here about how toxic it is after reacted. It's reacted, and let me tell you. Every single one of these finishes, once they're reacted, is food contact safe. Notice that word I inserted in there, contact. Food contact safe, okay? All right? There is nobody going to the hospital because they licked their kitchen table and got polyurethane poison. I know, I looked for that online just before I did this, just to make sure, okay? Once this is reacted, it forms a matrix, a chemical matrix that is biologically inert and will not react with you. So consequently, you can put every one of these on anything, with the possible exception of cutting boards, and only because with cutting boards, you're actually cutting into the wood, and there are little pieces of wood that could carry this stuff into your system. And if you eat enough cutting boards, you get constipated. It just happens. But the finishes are safe enough to use on cribs, toys, anything that is not going to be chewed on. So I guess some toys would fall in there with the cutting boards, wouldn't they? But anyway, food contact safe. Remember that. Get your safety data sheets. There's if you want to, you almost need an education to read this, but I did put something in my finishing book that shows you what to look for when you're going through these. All right, so with all of that, let's talk about the experiment that I did, and we'll go through these one finish at a time. All right. What we did is we glued up 6 types of wood. All right, cherry, maple, white oak, white pine, walnut, and poplar. All very common woods. And then we put a finish on each one of those. But we didn't do just a finish. We did coats of finish. All right. Here you can see this is 1 coat, 2 coats, 3 coats, 4 coats. So we can see how it builds and whether or not it builds depth. In addition, and I won't be going into this because it takes too long, we also did something where we took a measured amount of finish. Here's the Minwax water poly, and we dropped it on a clear plastic plate, okay, and let it flow out by gravity. There was no brushing, no nothing. We just wanted to see how viscous it was, and then we let it dry to see how it would dry. This told us something, and it allowed me to put these in order, because if finish has, let me see there, here we go. Here's the Minwax tung oil. See all those wrinkles around the edges? That tells me that there's a lot of blended oils in this. You know, less varnish, more oil. But if we go to, well, let's go to the armor seal. Look at how smooth that is. That's how it flowed out, and there isn't a wrinkle to be seen. That's mostly varnished. So I can tell how much varnish and how much oil there is in here by looking at this. Now, at the same time, we spread it out on another glass sheet so that we are not glass, these are plastic, another plastic sheet so that we can look through it and see how yellow it is. All of these finishes warm up the wood to a certain extent. And you can see right here, this is the Minwax water poly, and there isn't much yellow to it, but there is surprisingly a little bit. You go to something like well, let's go to the linseed oil. Really, really yellow, okay? Can you see that? Okay, it's and you can look through it. You can also see how clear it is. How good a lens is that? So we've got all of that. I also saved all of the rags. These rags can tell you quite a bit about the finish. Here's the Hope's tung oil. This is 100% tung oil. Notice that it's as limp as a rag, but if I go to the other end of the spectrum there, to this is the armor seal, okay? See how stiff that's gotten? Okay, now there's another test I can do on this stuff. Say, look at this. See how stretchy that is? You know, I know that finish will expand and contract with the wood, okay? The armor stuff, yeah, it does, but it's a little tough. And, you know, you might be worried that as it ages, especially if it ages in UV light, it's going to get a little harder. So this sort of thing can tell you a lot about a finish and what it's going to be like. But let's just concentrate on the pieces of wood. I'm going to go in the same order that I've got things here, and we'll start. Let me get this out of the way. We'll start with the 100% tung oil. Okay. Now we're looking to this for several characteristics. All right, and the characteristics that we're looking for, okay, are there we go. First of all, the appearance, the coating, whether it coats or in builds depth, the penetration, how deeply it penetrates into the wood, the hardness of the finish, because that's going to tell you how well it protects the finish for the wood from abrasion, the flexibility, like I just showed you there with the rags, the feel. Okay, that is something that so many people ignore, but you all know exactly what I'm talking about. When you get a well-finished piece, it just feels good just to handle it. So the feel of the finish is important. It's part of the craftsmanship. And finally, and this is important, especially for this group, the ease of application. So, with that said, let's go through these things one at a time. All right, we've got the tung oil. It doesn't build at all. Here is coat 1, 2, 3, and 4, and they all look exactly the same. It does penetrate nicely. Look at this. I taped off divided it. Here's coat 1 coat, 2 coats, 3 coats, 4 coats, and it's taped down the middle. And you can see that this finish has soaked under the tape and run into the board. So it's penetrating. It's penetrating very nicely. It feels oily, and it collects dust. I don't know. I know that there are a lot of gunsmiths out there that swear by tung oil for the gun stocks, and it does bring out the grain of the wood nicely. I mean, look at that white oak. You can really see the rays right there. But it's not going to get hard. It's going to remain oily for a long time. Now I didn't put any wax on this. Now a little bit of wax might help, but none of these things have been waxed. I'm just looking at the finish itself. All right, let's go on to the traditional finish, the linseed oil. Okay, all right, 1 coat, 2 coats, 3 coats, 4 coats. All right, let me give you a little bit of reflection there. Okay, it is starting to build. Okay, it has a waxy feel, but that may be the beeswax in there, and it has a much better feel than the tung oil. It penetrates incredibly well. Look at the penetration there. So I don't know, a really nice finish if you want a dull look. I mean, that is about as dull as you're going to get, especially even after 4 coats. There's almost no build, no depth there. But the color's good, the grain is good. It could be the right finish for you. All right. Tung oil, Minwax tung oil finish. All right. 1 coat, 2 coats, 3 coats, 4 coats. All right. You can see we're starting to get a lot of build here. Really nice shine there. Now, I rubbed out when I put on each coat, okay, I rubbed out the finish before I put on the next coat, just like you would. I sanded with, first of all, I sanded with the gray Scotch-Brite. This is about 800 grit. And then if there were high spots, I took them down with 600 grit wet dry sandpaper, and then went back to the Scotch-Brite. So I did that in between each of these coats, but I left the 4th coat just as it was. I didn't touch it. I wanted to see how it was, to give myself some idea of how much work I was going to have to do to rub this out. This is nice and smooth, but there is some work here. Also, these building finishes start to really show off the pores in the wood if you have open-grained woods, as you do here with the oak and the walnut. Again, I'm gonna tilt this, and maybe you can see that you can just really see the ring porous wood there. Now, what I normally do with a wiping finish like this is I put on the first and sometimes the second coat by wiping it on and then sanding it, wet sanding it with sandpaper. That creates a slurry of the finish and sawdust. And when I wipe it off the first time, I wipe it across the grain to force it into the pores. It fills the pores. Does a fairly nice job of it too, and then you don't get all of this ring porous effect that you're seeing here. But right now, you do have a lot of it, and you have to take into consideration that that's some extra work you have to do to make this finish work for this particular wood. All right, the Minwax Antique Oil. Okay, whoa, a lot of shine there. Look at that. Now this has got some urethane in it, and it really builds quickly. Here we go. 1 coat, 2 coats, 3 coats, 4 coats. And that 4 coat is nice and deep. I have a friend of mine who this is all the only finish he uses. He loves this stuff. I can see why. It's also got a fair amount of penetration. You can see where it's crept under the tape there. Not a whole lot though. You're going to find as we get more and more into these building finishes that there's less penetration here. But this feels nice. This feels really nice. So general finishes, wood bowl finishes. There we go. Okay. 1 coat, 2 coats. Keep forgetting to bring this up so you can see what I'm talking about. 1 coat, 2 coats, 3 coats, and 4 coats. Bring that back and forth. Okay. Same. We're still having the same problem. We're still seeing that ring porous wood there, but not quite as much. This is beginning to have enough solids to fill in those pores. It's not penetrating as much. You can see that by the tape line. But there is some. Whoop, there's a piece of tape that I haven't taken off yet. But it's really tough. Really tough. A lot of varnish in that blend. All right. This is the wipe on poly. Okay. 1 coat, 2 coats, 3 coats, 4 coats. This, of all the finishes that I did, this was the easiest to apply. It went on beautifully. I wish it had brought out more color. Let's take this, and I'm going to go down to the antique oil, so we can compare them. Look at that. Okay. Let's compare 4 coats with 4 coats. See that? All right. Just not the color, just isn't there. Okay. In fact, if we put this with the uncoated thing, you can see there's some color difference, but not that much. Not that much. It really doesn't warm the wood very much. I hope that they do a little more work on this, because this is really, really easy to apply, and it feels good. This feels better than most, especially when I haven't rubbed this out. It does have the ring porous problem. You would probably have to sand this in or fill the wood grain, but it's a nice finish, surprisingly nice. And finally, the wiping varnish, Armor Seal. Okay, 1 coat, 2 coats, 3 coats, and 4 coats. This built the quickest, but then I was expecting it would. Okay, I'm so smart. The finish was by far the hardest to apply. Really hard to rub out between coats. This is a really, really tough finish. If you're looking for something fast, this isn't it. If you're looking for something tough, this is your you found it. Tell you a little story here. When putting this on, normally what I would do, like I said, I would apply these with a brush, and I would leave them to soak in. So I was doing the second coat, and I was in a hurry that evening, and I wiped it on, and I wiped it across the wood. I normally do that to try to get more finish into the open grain here. So I wiped it across the wood, and then I'd wipe it off with the wood. I was I thought I'm just going to go on and I'm going to do the other finishes. I had 3 more finishes to do. I did them, and by the time I got back to this, those ridges had dried already. I mean, I could not wipe them out. So I was forever sanding them off. They didn't start to disappear until the 4th coat. So this is really hard stuff, hard to wipe out, hard to apply. But it gives you, of all the finishes that I've got here, it is the deepest of finishes. So I told you that I'd tell you what Rudy Osolnik told me to do at the end of this. Rudy loved this stuff. He would put on the things that he turned, he would put 2 coats on of just this stuff, and then he would add a little bit of spar varnish to it. About 1 tablespoon per cup is what he told me, and that gave him some harder resins that made the finish tougher. He wanted this as thin as possible for the first 2 coats so that it would soak in deep. And then he wanted the next 2 coats to build and give a good deep shine. And so he got it by adding a little spar varnish to the tung oil. Now, I have continued to do that over the years. It's worked very well. Of course, it's hard to get spar varnish anymore. Well, it's actually impossible to get spar varnish, but I've gone to spar urethane, and it works like dynamite. Is there anything here that would cause me to change what I'm doing? I don't think so. I'm getting a deep penetration, good color, and a nice build, and a hard, tough coat. I have something here I want to show you. About 35 years ago, I made a storage cabinet for my table saw. I don't believe in saw stands or tool stands of any sort. Tool stands to me are wasted space. The minute I get a stationary tool, I discard the stand and I build a cabinet to put under it so I can put all the accessories I need for that tool in that stand. And this is from the stand that's under my table saw. And this finish is this with a little bit of spar varnish added. It was long enough ago that I could get real spar varnish. And as you can see, it's still a pretty tight finish. Now, I brought this out here because Travis and I grab this knob and open this drawer once, twice, sometimes a dozen times a day, because this is the drawer where I keep the wrench that I need to change the saw blades or to change to dado blades. So we've been on this drawer a long time, and you can look at that. You can see that there's some wear on that knob, but it is still pretty much in good shape after 35 years of hard use. So the stuff works. So here's what I'm suggesting. I'm suggesting that you do what I did, okay? Take some finishes that you're interested in. Don't wait 35 years like what I did. If some new chemistry comes along, experiment with it. It's fun. It's how you grow as a craftsman. But a good wipe-on finish, okay, will simplify your finishing cabinets and your finishing chores. End of story. Any questions?
Do we have questions? Tim?
Yes.
We're
We're working with some questions from the audience.
We're unmuting, I see right now.
Okay, could you talk a little bit about lacquer?
Can you talk?
Okay, could you talk a little bit about lacquer?
Can you hear us? Like you to talk about?
Yeah. Hey, guys, I'm not getting anything from you. Every now and then the sound comes up. You want me to call? If you could give me a call, I can answer your questions over the phone.
Yeah, go ahead and use that number we talked about earlier.
Here we go. Let's try old Alexander Graham Bell. Hello. Lacquer doesn't fit into this scheme. Lacquer is a spray on or wipe on stuff. If you're a carver, you love Deft, which is lacquer, because it goes on so easily and it's so good to rub out. But carvings don't get much handling. Okay, there are things that you look at. Deft and all lacquers are fairly they're very fragile. They will not give you the protection from abrasions that you would get. Oh, okay, I'm talking into my phone, thinking I need to do it. They won't give you the protection that you need, not that you need, the protection that you get from reactive finishes. A lacquer is an evaporative finish. The lacquer thinner that carries lacquer will dissolve the lacquer off of it. So it's really no better than shellac as far as protection.
Can you tell the difference between Watco and antique oil?
All right. I used what the question was, what is the difference between Watco oil and antique oil? And the answer is Watco is a blended oil. It's down here in that way. It's actually, if I had a can of Watco, I'd put it right here. I used to love Watco oil before Rudy showed me the trick with tung oil. I used to use it all the time. It went out of favor for a while because it was a lot. It was mainly polymerized linseed oil, and a couple people sued the Watco company for their shops burning down. If you have anything with linseed, I'm going to stop here and stop answering your question and give you a safety tip, which I feel is important. If you have anything like this, which has linseed oil in it, you have to remember that all of these oils, and linseed oil especially, are exothermic. That is, as they do that reaction with oxygen that I talked about, they give off heat. If you have a rag and you ball it up and throw it in a trash can, the folds of the rag will collect that heat. And I've done this experiment. In about 2 hours, it'll start to smoke. And in 4 hours, you'll have an open flame. Okay, so you need, every time you use any of these finishes, but linseed oil in particular, you need to hang your rags out so that and not ball them up, or you need to store them in an airtight can. Now, back to the Watco oil. I didn't include this in the finish because I wanted to try a new polymerized oil finish that I hadn't tried before. And 7 was the number. We were going to hold it to 6, but I stretched it to 7 to work in the coalescing finish. So if you like Watco, test it. It's a good finish. It worked for me for years. It just doesn't have the toughness that I would like.
Yes, could you repeat the ratios that you use for the spar and the tung oil?
Ratios of the spar and tongue oil. The ratio of spar varnish to tongue oil.
Yes. 1 cup tung oil to 1 tablespoon of spar varnish. That was what Rudy told me. Now that that's not hard and fast. If you want this thing to build faster, you could add a little bit more spar urethane. It'll have to be spar urethane rather than spar varnish. But you could also go the other way and add a little less. Depends on how much time you have. But the polyurethane adds a harder finish that builds faster. And but again, remember the experience I had with this armor seal. Okay, the more of that varnish that you put in here, the harder this thing is going to be to rub out. Every kitchen utensil that you go buy commercially is finished with triglycerides. Right here, okay. It's a form of alkyd that is very common, and most of the cutting boards are finished with it too. The fact is that these things are, like I said, biologically inert, and they're not going to hurt you that much. However, if you want to err on the side of caution, okay, walnut oil is a good choice. The tung oil is a good choice. Linseed oil, not raw linseed oil, is a good choice. And then of course there's the old fallback mineral oil. You will have to apply these things every so often, well, at least once a year, in order to keep the cutting board protected. If you want to go up to polymerized finish, they have polymerized tung oils that you can get. Of course, this is polymerized linseed oil, and then of course you have the salad bowl finish. As far as utensils, I would those contact the food. You're not eating the utensil. I would say any one of these finishes would be perfectly fine. And for that, I will get 100,000 emails tomorrow. Okay.
Are there any oils that you could use to bring out color that are compatible with the water-based poly as a top coat?
Okay. Something very interesting that you should know, and this is an old finisher's trick, and it has saved my bacon many times. Shellac. If you want to use one finish over another, put a coat of shellac in between them. Shellac is a great sealer. You can put two completely incompatible finishes, one on top of the other, if there is a layer of shellac in between. Now, you can't mix those finishes. You can't. You can only mix water-based finishes with other water-based finishes, and you may not be able to do that. Okay, you don't know, and they're not going to tell you in the safety data sheet what they used as the co-solvent in this. You know, there's water in here, but you don't know what solvents is in with the water, and it might be incompatible with the other one that you grab off the shelf. You put the two together, and all of a sudden you form they won't dry, or you have a big explosion. Something like that will happen. The best thing to do. One of the reasons I like Minwax and why I stay with it is that if you're going to mix stuff, they keep their cans colored. I know that I can mix the yellow stuff with the yellow stuff. So I grab the tung oil finish, and then I get the spar urethane in the yellow can. They mix well. All right. I can grab the stuff in the red can and mix it with this. Okay, it works that way. I don't think it works that way with general finishes, but it sure works with mid-wax. So I would be very careful about mixing finishes at all. Make sure that you do an experimentation on something on some scrap of wood around your shop, a piece of wood that's left over from your project, or a piece of plywood that hasn't been in the family too long. Do that before you actually put it on the project. Okay. All right. I have a wonderful tool. Yeah. What? Yeah. How do you get the finish off of something? All right. I have this. This is how you get the finish off of something, and you don't have to use any chemicals. If you are not into scrapers, you should be. Okay. These are the best woodworking tools ever invented. They will save you sanding. They will save you chemistry. They will save your marriage if you let them. But you've got to learn how to sharpen them, because the burr on these things only lasts about 15 minutes and then they have to be sharpened over. And I would suggest that if you want to see how to sharpen a scraper, you go to my videos. I've got a good video right there, and where I give you 2 ways to sharpen a scraper: the quick way and the other way. So that will take it off. However, scrapers don't get into the crevices. So what do you need to do to get into the crevices? Well, you can buy strippers. I buy strippers are expensive. I mean, $30 a gallon. Let me give you another recipe here. All right. 2 parts, either xylol, XYLOL, okay, or toluol, TOULOL. Okay, and you might find it being called xylene or toluene. 2 parts of that, 1 part acetone, and 1 part denatured alcohol. Okay, mix that up in a cauldron of some sort. Okay, and wipe it on. Okay, and it will dissolve anything. I've even had it dissolve old milk paint finishes. So those of you who have tried to get milk paint finishes off before, usually those can only be removed by an act of Congress, but this will do it. Wood conditioner and wax paste. Okay. I have to admit that I've done very little with wood conditioner. I have been employed for 50 years in investigating woodworking techniques, and haven't had to really. I haven't had to work with woods where I would need a wood conditioner. I know that there are they're almost a must in. If you're going to try to put a finish on yellow pine, or some other lumberyard special, but I really have no experience to work from. I know how they work. They simply they don't completely seal the wood, but they seal it enough that the finish doesn't completely penetrate. One of the problems that you have, and why you need the wood conditioner, and you can see it to a certain extent here on this white pine, okay? You have a huge density problem between the summer growth, which is the light stuff, and the spring growth, which is the light stuff, and the summer growth, which is the darker stuff. That's what makes your annual rings. And on yellow pine, the dark stuff, the summer growth, is almost as dense as ebony, while the lighter stuff is really light. And so what happens if you put a finish on that? It really soaks in to the the spring wood and doesn't soak into the summer wood. You put a conditioner over the wood and it will partially seal everything so that you get a more even penetration. Like I said, I just haven't used it. It's used mostly when you're doing finishes which have some color to them, because if it really soaks in, you get a negative of the wood. I could put a stain on this wood or a finish with some color, and all the parts that look dark now would turn light, and all the parts that look light would turn dark. So the conditioner at least saves me from that. What I do, the times that I have had to stain really difficult to stain woods, is I just go to nitric acid. Normally, you're just trying to darken up the wood so that it looks like something expensive, and nitric acid oxidizes the wood surface. Let's see if I can get. Travis, could you hand me that the steps over there, those or one of those poplar things? What I'm going to show you is I'm going to show you a set of steps that Travis and I made from poplar. Poplar is notoriously hard to stain. Okay, yeah, it's you're going to have to look at this stuff through the dust. Okay, it's notoriously hard to stain, but it's there you go. There we go. Thanks. Look at that. See, nitric acid makes poplar look like cherry. Beautiful finish, and there's no wood conditioner on this. If I had to stain this with a cherry stain, I probably would have had to go to a wood conditioner to get past the blotchiness that poplar normally causes. So I'm sorry that I can't answer your question. All I have is workarounds.
Okay, Nick, I think you've answered all the questions from our members in the hall here and online. I think we've all learned a whole lot tonight, and we're appreciative very much from what you've done. I'm sure one of our members, Bob Decker, who you've communicated with, will now call you Professor Engler going forward. But you really have
I used to teach at the University of Cincinnati.
there you go.
I wore that title.
It fits then. So thank you so much. We appreciate your time with us this evening. And
Thanks, guys. I appreciate your interest.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Okay, as I started, I knew that I was missing something. It occurred to me just as I sat down that I did not get introductions for the new members and the guests. So, so we have Chris here.
Yeah, so my name is Chris Moore. I live actually just like 2 streets over, but I've started doing woodworking for my job now for the past 5-6 months. And I heard about this group from Bob Shaw, and I came over here to check it out. So I'm excited to learn. I'm on the Facebook page, and I've been learning a lot and asking questions on there, but actually want to become a member and glean from all the knowledge ahead of me. So.
Okay. And who else do we have? Thank you, Chris. New members, guests.
I'm Keith Thomas. I'm from Trafalgar, Indiana, and I've been, I guess, in your group online on Facebook for a while, and I just want to come check it out. I like to get more involved with Central Indiana Woodworking. I have a side business where we build furniture and a sawmill, and I just want to kind of get more back into, I'll have more time now to where I can get back into kind of being more active in the local community a little bit.
Keith, tell me that bandage on your hand has nothing to do with woodworking, please.
Well, it was a log splitter, so I'm lucky to still have a hand. Thank you.
Anything else?
One second. And you're from Fowler? Oh, Trafalgar.
Trafalgar.
Well, you being here, what, the population is down by half tonight? Wasn't sure. They're in Bargersville. Yeah. Anyone else?
Okay, is that it then? All right, next we're going to have Bob Decker, VP of Finance and Development, and take it away. That one is not on. Looks like it's not going to be on. Come on.
Thanks, Tim. So, we have a couple of donations announced this evening.
It's red.
That we received in January. One was $250 from, Bob, could you put that slide up? It came through Baxter Pharmaceuticals in the name of Brendan Mayhew. Brendan is he's a non-member, and it came through, I'm a recovering accountant, so I know what the terms mean, but I hate to confuse people. Anyway, it's from a donor advised fund. We tried to do some research and don't really know why we've been fortunate enough for Mr. Mayhew to give us a donation, but it's a gift horse, and I'm not going to look it in the mouth. And then for our Kroger Rewards program, we've received a $67.20 check. And I want to remind you all that both Kroger and we also can go to Amazon Smile. So if you reach out to your family and friends or neighbors and ask them to designate CIWW as the recipient of, or designate when they make their purchases that CIWW, the donations go to them, that help us out. And the last but not least item I want to talk about is the Indiana State Fair. In the back of the room, we have Marcio Everest and some old geezer, Mick Keller. They have information about the items that we would like for members to make for the State Fair. Those items generally are things that sold well at last year's State Fair, but we're always open to new ideas. So stop by there if you haven't already and look at what's on the list. There is a pledge card back there that if you are interested in helping us this year, we'd ask that you fill that out. It's pretty simple. It's more to remind us who's doing what. But when the deadline approaches, which is going to be July 5th this year to have all your work turned in, it will remind us to make calls to people who still haven't completed their work. I guess I'll be making a call to myself because I'm pretty sure I won't make it. And then the other thing, a little different than last year, for the 2022 State Fair, we're asking that everything have a finish on it. And how appropriate that we had a presentation on finishes this evening. Last year, for example, the toys that sold very well all had finishes on them. The ones that were unfinished didn't sell as well. So we've come to the conclusion that products with finishes on them, whether they're clear finishes, oil finishes, whatever, sell better, especially the toys. The kids go for the bright color things as opposed to just bare wood. Marcel, anything else I should say? Say that again. Creativity, yes. Yes. So if there's nothing that floats your boat on the list of things we want and you got a better idea or you have an idea that you like, do it. We'll accept it. Thank you.
While the next person's coming up, that list that we showed you that is in the back of the room is also on the website, on the State Fair page. so you can go there and download it yourself.
Okay, under charitable activities, next we have Mike Robards with the Toy of the Month.
The same train that we did, I think, 3 years ago, but the rear axle is lowered a little bit, and we're making the offset wheel to make it chug, so it will roll that way. Now, I made a whole lot of kits, and I still have a whole lot of them back there, so guys, make sure you pick them up. We also have the alternate toy of the month. It's just plans only. It's a tanagram. You can download that, and all you take basically a 6-inch or larger square to make the tanagram, that make a puzzle, put it in a bag, and bring them in the box. But that's the alternate toy. Now, as opposed to finishing for the toy of the month, a lot of the agencies like their toys unfinished because the kids like to decorate them themselves. So toy of the month, for the most part, unfinished. State fair, definitely finish. Okay, one thing that is going to be coming up in the next few months, and I'm just going to kind of introduce it a little bit, is the toy design contest. You know, that's just kind of an idea we're playing around. We'll have more next month as to how it will be run and all the criteria, but start thinking about making a design yourself. Probably some wonderful prizes in the future. Thanks.
Whoa, whoa. And next we have Tom Meeker for the Turning Special Interest Chapter, and a couple of other things, I think.
This Saturday, we're going to have Barbara Dill speak to us virtually on Zoom. She does multi-axis turning, has some very interesting turning techniques. You all should have received a email and Zoom link yesterday. I'll send that out again Friday, just to give you a second chance to find it. And if you're like me, the early week emails get buried pretty deep, and if I forgot to mark them, I have a hard time finding them. So I will send that out again on Friday. I think our next meeting in March, I think we'll try to do what we plan to do in January, have Jim Dupler show us how to make handles for his gouges. I'll show you how to do tap some threads for your lathe, and Tim Kennedy is going to talk about some other shop aids that he uses in his turning that he's made. The second thing I wanted to mention is, I'll throw this up in here. You guys can grab that turntable picture. Marcel would like a bunch of these for the state fair. I made about, did I give you 12, 13 of them last year? She'd like to get 20 of them. It's really a pretty simple project. A lot of even beginner woodworkers can really help out with this. You start with 3 blocks of wood, all the same size, get glued together at various stages through this. Some scroll sawers. The scroll sawing out is very simple. The only difficult thing is trying to figure out how to mix and match the different veneers so you get something that looks halfway decent. And then the turners, turning the little cone in there, not real difficult. But if there's some people that would be interested in helping me do this, maybe we could get a bunch of them made. I know that there's some poplar out at Dellencamp's that is, I think, 6/4, that all need to be planed down and made into the appropriate blocks to start with. So if anybody's willing to help me do this, we can make a couple of these or get all these made for the state fair. Like I said, it's kind of a fun little project, and they're kind of cool to make. So see me afterwards if you're interested in helping make some of these speaker boxes for the state fair.
Hey, Tom?
Yeah.
Just exactly how do you use that?
Oh. Play some music.
Thanks, Tom. Okay, and now we have for the Furniture Special Interest Chapter, Roger Power.
Let me get some other business first. I think Jim mentioned dues. We're still taking dues. We're selling shirts. You can do it online or back at the back. If you're a new member, we have new member brochures, tells you all about the club. So I'd encourage anybody that's new or wants to know more about it to stop back there. Furniture SIG, that will be March 5th, right this building, 10 o'clock. And this is a prototype of a rocking chair we're going to make for the fair. This is Mike Hamilton. It's Mike Hamilton's work so far, and we're going to kind of fine-tune that, get plans, and right now we're looking at possibly April going to the shop and doing the rocker part and probably the back. Those are the most difficult. Every other part's pretty much square. So I encourage anybody who would like to come this March 5th, right here at 10 o'clock, and we'll get her started. Thanks.
And Bob Sartoris for marketing.
First, we want to thank all of you who took time to answer our survey about the potential for a digital woodworking special interest chapter. The board met and talked about it last week, and we are moving forward with plans to do that. Tom Ladd will actually be leading that effort. And so anyone who has ideas for Tom, be sure to reach out and give him suggestions. We'll be looking and talking about venues to do the workshops and sessions, who all would be a part of it. But again, keep your eyes open for more information in the newsletter and online coming soon. Next item, there is news on having the tool auction. It has been scheduled by Baxter Auctions for next Saturday, the 26th of February, starting at 9:30 in the morning at their address on East 46th Street. You can go to their website, baxterauction.com. That's singular auction, baxterauction.com, and you can navigate to see photos of everything that they have so far on their list. They've got 100 and some pictures, so you know there's a lot of stuff. We're working to get an actual printed list that we will also put it on the website for you to see what will be available at that. And remember that they're handling all the auction and the sales right there on their site, but CIWW does benefit from all those sales. So do check out the list of what's available and use this as a good excuse to upgrade your workshop. Next item, we talked last time about the CIWW store where the apparel is available for you to purchase. We've already taken orders for over 50 items so far, and we've decided to go ahead and extend the deadline until the March meeting. We were hoping we could perhaps help you place orders here at the hall. It gets complicated because the credit card information and you're being able to log into your account. So at a minimum, Roger is available at the back table to take your orders, to show you what's available on the website, and or you can call him after this meeting. And if you have a hard time getting to the online version, let us know, and we'll do our best to work with you to get your order placed. Next slide. There is on the main menu item, there's a CIWW store that takes you directly there. Next slide. Yeah, and then once you're inside, you'll see the list of products available that you can choose from, and most of those are in multiple sizes, some as much as 4X size. And there's hoodies and a ball cap on there as well. So next slide. I'll leave this now. Jim, you can follow up with anything. Oh, I know. The other thing, too, is we had somebody that donated these cork coasters, and they're cut with a laser in the shape of a saw blade and engraved with our logo. And we were going to put these online, but if you're interested in them, we'd take a donation tonight. So come see me afterwards. Each of these has 4 in each little packet like that, and we've got 4 or 5 of these to offer to you as members. So see me tonight before we leave. Jim?
Okay, thanks, Bob. All right, I'm acting as Kim Clark again. And so for the Educational Programming Committee, on Wednesday, February 23rd, CIWW will be hosting a workshop entitled How to Sell Your Stuff. It will take place from 7 to 8:30 p.m. via Zoom. All members are invited to attend and participate in this unique event. The workshop will feature a panel of 4 different, turn one of these mics off, okay. Panel of 4 different CIWW members who have been using different methods to sell their projects. Jim Dupler, Tim Kennedy, Mike Gant, and Nathan Linville. Each panelist will be given time to speak about their journey through the process of finding a successful avenue to sell the stuff they make. They will also offer tips of what to do and what not to do. At the end of the presentations, members will be invited to ask questions of each panelist. Details can be found on the CIWW event calendar. The Zoom invitation for this meeting will be sent to all members on Tuesday, February 22nd. Next month, George Von Driscoll will be visiting us. George will be our in-person presenter at our monthly meeting on March 16th, where he will be demonstrating his dovetail jig tips and tricks. That's a mouthful. George describes his presentation by saying router-based dovetail jigs simplify the process of creating through and half-blind dovetails, but there are still plenty of places where things can go wrong. He will provide tips about setting depth of cut, positioning your material, feed direction, router handling, and more. He will conduct 5 workshops over a period of 3 days from March 14th through the 16th. One day he'll be conducting 2 workshops on working with live edge slabs. In this workshop, he'll be demonstrating 3 different processes necessary to work on live edge slabs. He will demonstrate different types of epoxy to make sure you're choosing the right one for your application, and look at various methods for damming the slab. I've said that to a couple of projects. It's never been a slab. So you can pour your epoxy. He will also show how cracks in slabs are commonly dealt with by bridging the crack with an inlay of some kind, using a bow tie or a butterfly. There are lots more options here than the standard bow tie. A variety of ways you can cut bow ties in materials besides wood that inlays can be made from. He will demonstrate a number of these options and how to use them. Finally, he will demonstrate how to create waterfall edges, providing continuous grain from the tabletop to the leg. He will show the proper way to cut a miter across the slab, reinforcing the miter before assembly, and clamping strategies that provide pressure where it's needed. On another day, he will also be conducting 2 workshops on router table joinery. George believes that router tables are one of the most versatile tools in the shop. Okay. He'll also provide you with many different joinery options. He will demonstrate edge joining, rabbets, dados, Copen style, lock rabbet, drawer lock, and the elusive lock miter joint. This should be a very informative demonstration. His 5th workshop will be in the morning of the 16th, and the topic will be either of the 2 topics previously described, depending upon what the sign-ups look like, I guess. All workshops will be held at the Union Hall. Details of the individual workshops will be put on the event calendar as soon as they are finalized. All right, I think that takes care of it. I don't see anything else on the screen that I have to say about that. All right, so we've got a few extra minutes here. I'm going to read a letter that just for some reason made it to me, although it was addressed shortly after our pick and pack in December. It's from St. Mary's Early Childhood Center. Dear Jim and CIWW club members, you made a difference in a child's life through your gift to St. Mary's Early Childhood Center. Thank you for your donation of handmade wood toys for the children. We greatly appreciate your support. St. Mary's Early Childhood Center is a not-for-profit agency that offers 2 early childhood initiatives to positively impact the futures of young children: the preschool program and the educational outreach program. St. Mary's Early Childhood Center Preschool provides the highest quality early childhood experiences that will ensure success in school and build the foundation for lifelong success for our children. The preschool program has a strong history of serving children who live in poverty. We live in this mission and give intense focus to the work considered of the highest, to this work in consideration of the high stakes involved. The cost per child is $10,000 per year. 100% of the children who qualify for free or reduced lunch receive substantial assistance, with most families paying just $10 a week. The Educational Outreach Program provides professional development opportunities for educators who want to learn about our work, especially related to our study of the Reggio Emilia philosophy and applied educational neuroscience. We provide seminars, tours, consultations, and presentations to educators. It takes people like you to make St. Mary's mission possible. We are extremely grateful for your continued support and thoughtfulness. We wish you all the best. Signed, Kristen Kevalik, Executive Director. So that's one of the many agencies, I think it was 42 actually, that we provided toys for in December. So I'd like to provide this feedback whenever we have it. And I don't know why it took so long to reach me, but that doesn't matter. And with that, we all go to show and tell. Looks like we only have a few items up here. And whoever belongs to that vase, come on up, because everything else on the table is mine. Oh yeah, I turned it off. It's persnickety. Hello. Did it get green?
We have power. Okay, it's me, Pat. I had this piece of cherry burl sitting around for quite a while, like years, and finally decided to do something with it. It looked great from the outside. I started turning it, once it got round, I could tell that one side was kind of substantially rotten. So I stabilized it and went ahead and finished turning it, and it didn't completely blow up. So I think it turned out pretty cool. I'm going to turn it around so you can see the other side now. And sometimes you don't know what you know until you know it, so there you go. And actually, I think it looked pretty cool. So, and it didn't blow up. Ta-da!
Last month at the Turner's meeting, the Saturday after the General Club membership meeting, Tim Kennedy did a session on making spurtles. And so the next day I went down the shop and cut up some maple, and this was the first one I made. I decided that the handle was a little bit too big. So then I made another one with a smaller handle, and I like that one better. I put a little bit of a curvature in the paddle end of it, and this is the one I like the best, and it's just a little bit smaller. One of these has been used in our kitchen almost every day since the day I made these, and I I did Tim's suggestion where you sand them to 400, soak them in boiling or almost boiling water to raise the grain, dry them overnight, sand them again with 400. And Tim doesn't like mineral oil, but that's what I put on them. And I love them. Anyway, I think one of the best things that a workshop presenter can realize is somebody showing up the next month with the projects that they made based on what you learned from them. Okay, so this was my first attempt at a lidded vessel. Leave it on the, okay. I'm bad at that. Okay, my first attempt at a lidded vessel. By the way, it's finished in Shella wax. And Shella wax you can get from Wood Turnings, and it's usually a special order. I think it has to come from Australia. But it's a combination of shellac and carnauba wax. And it's kind of almost like a runny toothpaste. And you smear it on and let it sit a bit, and then crank up the speed on the lathe and polish it out. I've got everything it's going to take to get my vacuum chuck set up, but I don't have it set up, so I did this one a little bit differently. And it still has the negative spigot on the bottom. I started this thing out by just drilling a Forstner, a 7/8 hole with a Forstner bit in the blank, and then taking a piece of 7/8 dowel rod, dipping it in water and jamming it in there real quick, and then I chucked the whole thing with that piece of dowel rod and turned the spigot on the bottom, and then finished the bottom, flipped it around, did the rest of it, sawed the top off of it, and actually I was kind of pleased with my first pass at it. So the handle here has this little, so I had to make this piece and then glue it in there. So next one I'll use the vacuum chuck, and hopefully I won't have to have this separate handle piece, but I'm pretty happy with it for my first pass at that. Okay, I'm done. And now I think we have the door prizes, courtesy of Rockler. Remember, when you go to Rockler, tell them you're a CIWW member. You get a ticket. Tim's falling down on the job here. Tell them you're a CIWW member. You'll get a 10% discount on most things that don't take electricity, and as long as they're not on sale. And and they'll put a mark in their little, in the CIWW page in the book, and when they get 20 marks in the book, we get a $20 gift card. We use those gift cards for prizes and incentives. We gave away a bunch at the jig and fixture contest last fall, and I think we're going to give away some more. They want to give away some more as prizes for the toy design contest. So, okay, Tim's going to announce, and I'm going to draw the numbers.
Okay, so first prize selected is some attachments for your dust collection system. These are 4-inch tool ports, pardon me, and the number is 825. Oh, come on up, sir. And the second item is a book titled The Craft of Veneering, and that ticket number is 829. 829. All right, Bill Redmond. He threatened me if he didn't win. The third item is an Easy Lap Diamond Sharpener for tools, skates, scissors, carbide tools, saw blades, etc. And that ticket number is 873. Okay, the next item, it's a combination of two. So first of all, for safety features, finger protection wrap. So if you're a carver, maybe a turner, or whichever, other uses, of course. And then various bits of samples of wood for glue-ups, etc. And that ticket number is 874. 874. Oh, okay. Those are the Seymour guys. Oh, the Seymour. Yeah, let me have this one. Yeah, they left. So this is Seymour guys. So the ticket is 845. 845. Colin, right there in front. Next is a collection of 4 3/4-inch clamps, and the number here is 836. 836. Here we go. For those of you who use carbide turning tools or other items such like that, this is a carbide cutter honing system. And the people at Rockler were demonstrating this to me the other day because I showed some interest in it. And the number is 853. 853. There we are in the back. Okay.
So I reached down in the bottom trying to get a number that was substantially different, and what did I come up with?
Okay. Last item, no, next to last item, I'm sorry, is a doweling jig for 3/8-inch dowels. And this ticket number is 855. All right. How about 869? There we are, back left. Okay. All right, I gotta stir these up there.
I am stirring every time.
I believe this is a new item at Rockler, a spring-loaded one-handed bar clamp. 856. Pat Meyer, okay, very good.
Okay, so we also have some, Tim has some lumber out there in the back of his truck. Some are pine 2x4s for toys, and others, there's some maple and some, I don't know.
The slab shop, the proprietor of the slab shop next to Mike Delacamp's office gave us a bunch of cutoffs, but there's a lot of maple, there's some oak, some walnut, and then there's and fairly good-sized pieces, lengthwise, width, and thickness. So, you know, whatever you're making, there's probably some wood out there for it. There's some smaller stuff as well. I believe it's maple that were probably for drawer, maybe making drawers, something like that. And Mick is holding something up in the back.
I'm sorry, Mick? Okay, so the state fair commitment for projects, go back there and check it out. Check out the list that's needed. Go out there and make your commitments to contribute to the state fair. Last year, our net at the state fair was in the neighborhood of $15,000. So we could certainly use your expertise to make some more cool stuff to sell. Anything else that we need to talk about tonight? Pick up toy kits. When you bring back your toys, please make sure they're in boxes. If you don't have boxes, we have a bunch in the back room. Go back there and beat on Mike, he'll get you some. There's nothing more frustrating than working pick and pack and coming out with a garbage bag full of toys. It's difficult to load on the truck. Okay, let's go make sawdust, have fun, be safe, make a difference.